Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, since its maiden voyage on the high seas in August 2021, Virgin Voyages has succeeded in disrupting the conventional cruise line industry. The adults-only cruise line will launch its fourth ship next year, and with new global itineraries now available to cruisers, it is certainly on an upward growth trajectory. Here to tell us about its success to date and how it's disrupting the traditional cruise industry is the CEO of Virgin Voyages, Nirmal Saverimuttu. Nirmal, we last met in September when we had dinner together on Virgin Voyages' celebration cruise. But tell our listeners why that particular cruise was such a special occasion.
Good morning, Carl. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed our dinner, actually. We had a celebration voyage where we celebrated the best of what Virgin's achieved in the last 50 years. So what was really magical about that voyage was we were able to have Richard on board, we had Boy George on board, we had speakers from the Virgin Group, we had the founding CEO of Virgin Atlantic on board, and it really was a special celebration of Virgin. It was a really, really cool voyage.
It certainly was a great experience, I have to say. Now, you've worked alongside Sir Richard Branson for many years, so provide us with an insight into your career with Virgin and what you've learned from working alongside him.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've been around the Virgin Group for 18 odd years now. Prior to that, I was in investment banking, so I always say to people I'm a reformed investment banker. But now been around Richard and the group for 18 years, had the pleasure of working across multiple Virgin businesses. I was involved in Virgin America, which was our startup airline in North America, Virgin Hotels, which is our hotel chain, which actually just opened up in London. And then for the last 12 years or so, really been involved in Virgin Voyages and helping get this business up and running. It's been a real great journey with Richard and Virgin. People always ask me what's it like working with Virgin, and I always say to people it's one of the best gigs ever. I've really enjoyed my time here, and what I love about Virgin is I love the people. There's really two things that have struck me about Richard. The first obviously is how people-focused he is, and I just think, frankly, it's just the way the world should be. But some of these things are just the right thing to do, and it's just sort of where Richard always starts every conversation is, how are we doing with our crew? If we take care of our crew, then it means our sales will be happy, which means our business will be happy on the other side. And so a lot of decisions made around that. But, the other big thing I've learned from Richard is not being afraid to fail. Richard is the first to tell you that sometimes you try things and they're not going to work out. And oftentimes I think, leaders, people, businesses are afraid to push their limits, afraid to fail. And, from him, one of his big learnings as an entrepreneur is that, things are going to go bad, things are going to go wrong. And it's how you react to that and how you learn from those failures or how you learn from something that didn't go quite right. That's really what makes a business special.
So how was that Virgin culture actually integrated into a new company like Virgin Voyages?
When you can create businesses from scratch, you can actually build your culture from the beginning and from the ground up. And so that's one of the benefits here of Virgin Voyages. And we had some clear principles as we thought about it. We had to think about what it meant to bring the Virgin brand to life across a very disparate group of people, across a series of ships that we were sailing all around the world where we wouldn't be able to be with all the crew members every minute of every day. And so we spent a lot of time and effort thinking through what that culture would be. We talked a lot about what our creeds would be, what are the foundations of that culture. And we put together a series of trainings that are part of your welcome journey with Virgin Voyages, but on an ongoing basis with Virgin Voyages to make sure that people stay connected to what we believe that culture should be. And it's been a huge part of our success. And I'm sure that you've heard, Carl, one of the things that people talk about all the time about our voyages is our crew. And look, across the cruise industry, everyone has a great crew. Across our company, we've got a really great, talented group of people who really believe in the mission. But they really shine, and it really comes through in the passenger experience. And I'm sure, Carl, you've sailed a few times with us. I'm sure you've acknowledged that our crew are really special, and they're happy, and they go out of their way to make sure that all our sailors have the best possible service experience.
As a new brand operating within the cruise market, what did Virgin do to actually attract staff from all of the other cruise lines?
We spent a lot of time thinking through, much like the way we think through any customer experience, we spent a lot of time thinking through what the crew experience should be. We're very good at what I call journey mapping, mapping every part of a consumer journey, working out what the pain points are, working out what we could do differently, where it made sense to add value, where it made sense to kind of match. And we did the same thing for our crew experience, actually. And we talked to a lot of crew, prospective crew. We talked about what were the pain points. And then we also took a step back and said, forget sort of the business ROI around some of these things. what is the right thing to do? So I'll give you a great example. We offer all of our crew free Wi-Fi. They're away from home for long periods of time. We thought, the right thing to do is to make sure that they have free Wi-Fi. They have access to, video and audio calling, as an example, to talk to their families at home. And I think most businesses would approach that from a strict ROI perspective of, what's the ROI associated with that, and how can I translate that investment into what the dollars will be on the other side. But sometimes when you're talking about crew, and this is again something we've learned from Richard, it's really not necessarily about the direct ROI, because there's an intangible associated with that. And sometimes it's just about what's the right thing to do. So in our case, our crew gets free Wi-Fi. We don't charge them for their uniforms. We don't charge them for their medical before they come to the ship. We do a lot of things like that. Coffees and teas are included. The food that they get in the crew mess is good food, similar to some of the passenger food. We also broke down the hierarchy that traditionally exists within cruising. And a lot of times in cruising, our captains, as an example, they don't wear stripes because I believe that as a leader in any great organization, and particularly any great Virgin organization, a leader only looks good because the people around them are shining and looking good. And so we don't need stripes to be a leader. It's about how we are, who we are, what kind of person we are, how we interact with our crew that makes us a leader. So we really took that whole journey and kind of upended on it, made sure we invested in the right kind of benefits, made sure we invested in the right kind of culture, particularly from a leadership perspective. And one of the things our crew will tell you is that, here at Virgin Voyages, they feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel like they're part of something. They don't feel like they're just sort of a small number on a piece of paper. And I think that's something we're all very proud of, and it's what reflects in the sailor experience that people see, and it's the result of all that is all the awards that we won.
And Nirmal, what traction has Virgin Voyages got since its maiden voyage back in August 2021?
Yeah, it's actually been a phenomenal few years for us, particularly the last year or so. As I mentioned earlier, the brand has won all the major consumer awards that are out to win. Condé Nast, Travel and Leisure are the two biggest consumer awards in travel and in cruising. And we've won those 2 years in a row now as the number one rated cruise line. We were the first brand to sweep Cruise Critics Awards. It's been in all 5 awards: Best Dining, Best Cabin, Best Service, Best Value for Money, and Best Overall Cruise Line. I think we were the first brand to do that. So the brand's getting a lot of appeal. And then financially, the brand has also, really been flying. We're up 50% year on year in revenue. We're on track to be another 50% up next year. So things are really looking very, very bright going forward. Obviously, as you mentioned, we had a horrible start, horrible timing to how we started the business, because we took delivery of our first ship in February of 2020. And then obviously we all know what happened in March of 2020. But it's wonderful that those days are all behind us. And, the brand is really getting traction, and people are really seeing what it's like to set sail the Virgin Way and falling in love with it.
And who was the primary target audience for Virgin Voyages?
This is a great question, actually, Carl, because when we first came out to market, I do believe there was a misperception. And some of that might have been a little bit of our own goal, in that some of the choice of materials we used and marketing messages we used maybe painted the wrong picture. What I'd say to everyone right now, it's very simple. A Virgin Voyage is for anyone traveling without kids. We haven't touched on this yet, but, we're a brand that is for travelers who are 18 plus, 8 years old. And so if you're traveling without kids, then I think we're a great travel option for you. And it's sort of as simple as that. There was a lot of discussion when we first launched about whether we were for millennials or whether people had never been on a cruise before. But, as we've been in operation now, particularly post-pandemic, people are starting to realize that it's a wonderful option if you're traveling without kids. The other thing I'd say is that if you think about cruising, there isn't really a kid-free option around our price point. Traditionally in cruising, if you wanted something that was kid-free, then you were looking at something that felt more like a luxury-oriented cruise line, which was typically much smaller ships. Our ships are boutique size. They're not some of the bigger ships in the world. The biggest ships in the world are well over 5,000 passengers. We're in the mid-2000s. But they feel like boutique hotels on the ocean. But if you are looking for that kid-free option, you really had to pay a significant price point to get to it before. And so what we've been able to do, and this is part of the vision for Virgin, we always think about, what is the white space we can go into. There is a big white space in cruising for a kid-free option that's at a more value for money oriented price point. Still premium experience, but it's a great value for money experience on board. And that's a result of all the work we did with Richard, thinking about where we should fit in the marketplace.
And in terms of food and entertainment, how is Virgin differentiating itself from other cruise line offerings?
Yeah, look, we have quite a differentiated offering in our food and our beverage and our entertainment. I mean, food is a great example, and I think food is a great example of where Virgin is best. We always look for these win-wins, and so as a great example, our dining environment. We took a step back, and I talked about those pain points before, and we talked about what are the things that we wanted to address, and what we created is an environment that doesn't have any big dining halls. Our biggest restaurant is 200 seats, not 2,000 seats like you'd see in other places. We don't have a buffet. All of our food is made to order from small dedicated kitchens that sit next to every restaurant on board our ships. And what it allows us to do is to actually reduce the food waste and then take that money and reinvest it back into the food quality. So then I mentioned before sort of classic Virgin. That's a very classic way that we like to think about things. What's the win-win? So how can we make sure that we are lowering our waste by making made-to-order food, take that money, reinvest it back in, create higher quality food. So all our food on board, we've got awards for being the best food at sea. And it comes from the way we rethought some of the operation on board. We don't have dress codes. We don't have set dining times. You feel like you're a different restaurant every night, which leads to a really, really great experience on board.
Provide us with an insight into your partnership with Michelin star chefs in developing the menus for those restaurants.
Yeah, no, it was, this has been a partnership across all parts of our business. We've been very lucky and very fortunate to have a lot of wonderful people who wanted to partner with the brand and are very excited what the brand is doing. So we were able to partner with a series of Michelin-starred chefs who came in, developed menus together with our team. What's wonderful about that was they weren't just simple licensing deals where we were just taking someone's name and taking a recipe card. These were actually co-developed. Some of these chefs, and most of them actually came to our test kitchen in Miami, helped prepare the food together with our lead development chef, and then actually went on board and actually trained all of our chefs on board in how to produce that menu.
Of course, Broadway shows have become synonymous with cruise line entertainment over many years. How have you differentiated yourself in that respect?
Yes, similar principle, Carl. We didn't really want to just be simply licensing shows and have them come to see. We sat down and said, well, what kind of things can we do? How can we partner with the right kind of people? And a great example is our show Dual Reality. We partnered with a circus group out of Montreal. We worked with them to develop a show dedicated to us. It's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but done with circus and acrobats. And it's the first show ever to be created for a cruise line that's been licensed to play in land-based theaters. And it's played in lots of theaters around the U.S. and Europe. But that just gives you an insight into kind of the way we think about it. So rather than just licensing a show from come to land to sea, could we create something good enough from go to sea to land and be the first brand to do that?
When it comes to feedback, of course, they say that feedback is the breakfast of champions. So how does Virgin Voyages gather and utilise customer feedback to improve its services and offerings?
I know you make that joke, break the champions. We joke internally that feedback is a gift. I myself love talking to crew, love talking to sailors. Like you and I had dinner together. You gave me a lot of gifts that day, Carl, from the dinner. But it was like Christmas came early for me, Carl. But I often feel like, these conversations about feedback, a lot of leaders, treat them as conversations they're afraid of. And I think that as leaders, we should be not afraid to receive feedback, right? We should not afraid to have tough conversations about working. It's always wonderful to hear things that are going well. But I think it's actually better to talk about the things that aren't going well, because you've got to continue looking to improve. And so in my conversations with people, it's always, that's great. I love the fact that you love the brand. I love the fact you love the food, love the service. Tell me about what else we could do. And I'm sure we can think about our dinner, Carl, very similar vein to how our conversation went, right?
So true. And Nirmal, what trends do you foresee shaping the future of the cruise industry over the coming years? And how is Virgin planning to navigate these?
Yeah, look, a lot of the trends that I see are very much linked into why we created the business. First of all, I do think there is a trend towards more premium but relaxed travel. And I think it's particularly post-pandemic. People want to stay in nice places. They want great food, but they don't want a lot of the traditional stuffy formalities that have come with prior, more luxury, more premium experiences. So, great example, we don't have dress codes as in cruising. We don't believe that people should be wearing tuxes for dinner. Of course, if you'd like to dress up, if you'd like to wear a suit to dinner, then you're welcome to. But some of us, I'm sure Carl, you included, sometimes our jeans are more expensive than our suit pants these days. So people should feel more relaxed, right? And so this idea of quality without the formality, I think, is a very big trend. It's a reason why we don't do dress codes, as an example. I do believe there's a trend towards kid-free travel. If you look at kid-free travel globally, it's growing significantly. There's a lot of assets being built in that area across hotels and other parts of the world. I do think it's a trend that is coming to cruising, and I think we've been a big part of that. There are only really two true kid-free options in cruising, one that's a much higher price point than us and smaller ships and more luxury-orientated. So I do believe that as we think about going forward, you're going to see a big trend to that. I think you're also going to see a big trend of need a cruise. I think you're going to see a lot of people who have never considered a cruise deciding to go on a cruise because cruising offers tremendous value for money. We are able to take you all different parts of the world. We're able to offer amazing food, amazing service. And what you're seeing is as travel is becoming more expensive around the world, more and more people are gravitating towards cruising. So I think you're going to see that. And then the last thing that I see is, a real trend that we are trying to pick up on is there is a real trend right now in travel to cut back quality and to charge more for things. And, we Virgin Voyages and Virgin generally, if you talk to Richard, he'll always talk about, I want to give more value for money. So in our case, we don't talk about, it's a very American phrase, but I'm sure can translate to audiences. We don't like to nickel and dimes. Which means we don't like to charge extra for all sorts of things and make this experience not feel particularly glamorous. So as an example, we give free Wi-Fi to our crew. We also give free Wi-Fi to our sailors because at this point, I believe Wi-Fi is a basic human right. We talk about things like, free, still, and sparkling water. When you walk into your cabin, we have a carafe of sparkling water. We have a carafe of still water, all free. And all around our ships, we don't pay for sparkling water or still water. So you don't have to lug cases of water onto our ship so that you don't get charged for bottles of water on board. So little things like that I think are really important. But I do think, is a trend as companies think about how to boost profits. How can we think about charging more for things? We're thinking about how can we give you more rather than how can we think about how to charge you more going forward. So I think those are four big trends that we see that I do believe will be some of the tailwinds behind Virgin Voyages as we continue to operate and launch more ships. And
Nirmal, what factors does Virgin consider when designing the itineraries for each of the ships? And are you discovering unexplored ports?
Yeah, so itineraries are very, very important. They're very big in reason why people choose to sail with Virgin Voyages. We always think about late stays and overnights. They're a key part of all of our itineraries. We also want to take advantage of our ships. If you think about cruising, there's a big trend to build very, very big ships. Every major cruise operator is now building and launching ships that are well north of 5,000 passengers. Our ships are in the mid-2000s. They're boutique mid-sized ships, which means, to your point, Carl, that they actually can go into places that other places people can't go. They can do things like stay overnight in various places. So as an example, all of our European itineraries, our itineraries out of Barcelona, they stay overnight in Ibiza. Our itineraries that are out of Athens stay overnight or stay late in Dubrovnik, and we'll stay overnight in Mykonos. So having a smaller ship allows us to do those kinds of things that are very difficult to do on big ships. So for us, it's always about, how can we offer a slightly different perspective on the destination? How can we take advantage of the fact that our ships are more boutique size? Globally now, we have quite an interesting deployment plan. We've got ships sailing out of Barcelona. We've got ships sailing at Athens. We also have ships seasonally sailing out of Portsmouth in the UK. We've got some really great iconic itineraries out of the UK. Trips to Iceland. We have a solar eclipse sailing in 2026. And then we're very excited about our fourth ship, Brilliant Lady, coming online in September next year. She'll be sailing out of New York, LA, Miami, and then she'll go up to Seattle, and she'll be in Alaska, and she'll be one of the newer ships in Alaska. We're getting a ton of interest in those sailings. People love the fact that the ships are going to be in these destinations. Alaska in particular, people keep raving to me about the fact that they can't wait to sit in the hammock and watch the Alaska landscape go by because we're the only ship to have hammocks on all our balconies. So people are very excited about that.
Nirmal, finally, are there any plans for Virgin Voyages to complete an IPO in the years ahead?
Look, I think right now we're just focused on executing our plan, launching our fourth ship next year. Clearly, the brand has a ton of traction, a lot of resonance. We won all those awards. Profitability is strong. In any kind of world like that, you're always thinking about growth and thinking about what else to do. So while it's not something we're specifically planning for, it's something that we've always on the lookout for. How can we grow the business, and how can we offer more and more people opportunities to sail the Virgin way?
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Nirmal Saverimuttu, the CEO of Virgin Voyages, and it's great to see how this new brand in the industry is introducing cruising to a whole new audience.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.